running full speed, but the markets are faster. Quasar Markets Live brings the world's top financial minds to you. Everything you need to know in one place. Learn from elite educators and gain a competitive edge, leveling the playing field for you. Join the conversation. Quasar Markets Live.
You want an investment edge, but all you hear is noise, hype, and half-truths. Every signal is solid information, but only if you can see the bigger picture. This is where the Quasar magic happens. Weather, charts, news, all financial signals funneled into a single dashboard. Data alone isn't enough. Quasar Markets turns it into energy, sharp, clear, precise. Optimize with Quasar Markets today. Your edge when investing.
Good morning, traders. Welcome to Quasar Markets Live. Howard Greenberg here. Solo till about 9:40 when Mr. Flanagan will come in to talk everything forex, macro, and just markets in general. Excited to have him in here with DXY. It briefly broke above 99 earlier before the data came in on employment news. So King Dollar may be back. We'll have our man in later to talk about it. Let's get a little bit into what is the talk of the morning. Obviously, we are all over. Good morning there, Ida, by the way. Jobs data is on everybody's mind here this morning. Payrolls came in plus about 50,000. That is a miss versus expectations. Hiring is a little slow. Unemployment rate came in at 4.4%. versus 4.5%, better than expected. So the labor market is not falling apart, and wages came in plus 0.3% month over month, 3.8% year over year. That year over year wage number is the sticky part there. And the participation rate at 62.4 edged lower. That matters because it can mechanically push unemployment down. And the more complete underemployment measure, the U6, was 8.4% improved. It's definitely not a clean risk on or risk off print. Just more confusion for us traders, right? What I see is slow hiring, but not much firing. Wages aren't collapsing, and the unemployment rate is still tight enough to keep the Fed cautious. I don't know what you guys think, but like I said, this one's a tough read for me. It doesn't really give me a big move one way or the other. Rates didn't really move that much on the news. This is what I'm watching here is the rates. Do they take off? They're moving down slightly, so it's giving you the hint there. Rates lowering means we're looking at, or bond traders are looking at it and saying, I do think that they're going to cut maybe. So we'll have Mr. Flanagan in to give, like I said, his reaction to that. And good morning to you, Steve. But that's where we're at right now. Definitely going to keep a close eye. You should have a close eye on your 10-year today there. And I will say volatility index came down more than almost 70 basis points after it. So volatility at least is, the market's pricing volatility coming down. So that's some of my early takes from it there. If we start to take a look at what's going on across the equities, we do see that the Dow Jones right now up about 31 basis points. And you can see on the hourly in my top right side here, it jumped up nicely over the, when that news hit there. So nice move up by the Dow. S&P now slated to open up about 34 basis points. Also gives you that same idea. And the NASDAQ up 43 basis points. And I will say the biggest gainer of the news was the NASDAQ. It was actually the only of the three major indices that was negative headed into that print at 8:30. We do have some more stuff today to keep your eyes on. We have Supreme Court Opinion Day. Today could be the day we hear about their opinion on the Trump tariffs. And then at 2 o'clock, the president has in the White House the heads of a lot of the major oil companies. So expect some tweet analysis to be done, and headline news to be moving the needle today. Let's take a look at the pre-market screener here. What's moving in the early morning? Because that's really going to give us our story, right? Biggest early morning rise, or at least I got to check. It was a few hours ago. Now it might have changed. Now we're still good there. VST, Vistra, nuclear is the story. This report definitely doesn't scream recession, but it does say, oh, wrong spot there. VST, there we are. I'm in the right spot now again. On the nuclear news of a deal with Meta, has VST, CEG moving to the upside. Those ones have already sort of taken off. The ones that could be sneaky moves today, keep an eye on like IREN, data center, crypto mining names might move today. Clean Sparks, another one, CoreWeave. So there's some sneaky names that probably haven't really been hit yet that might give you some upward. Yeah, CoreWeave only up about 1.31% here. So there are some sneaky names to keep an eye of there. Also, big movers today based on news. Open Door up about 10.5%. This is on the housing sensitivity, and the White House, again, the president said he is going to instruct the Treasury to buy back a huge amount of mortgage bonds, and that does have it at $200 billion in mortgage bonds. It has the market, thinking this is a way of quantitative easing, and it definitely is, in my opinion. So look for upside sensitivity for names like Open. Rocket, I believe, had moved up tremendously too. Yeah, up about 6.69% here. So a lot of these are moving to the upside right now. Other names, again, if you see a continued run, the secondary names to keep an eye on would be Lennar, only up about 2.81%. The other one would be DH Horton, DHI. These are the builders. They could be a secondary runner based upon this news. Keep an eye, another sneaky name to watch, AGNC, which is a play on the real estate REITs in that area too. So again, those are some of the names to one. The rate caveat is the housing rally only sticks if the yields cooperate. So keep an eye on those yields. If we see them continuing to move to the downside, that would mean risk on in those sectors for sure. As I mentioned a little earlier, VST, CEG, NRG also. NRG up about 4% here. Talent Energy, TLN up about 6.5%. So energy's done its running, basically Oklo. So again, I don't, if they continue to show strength, then I'm more looking to play those secondary names, like I said, that haven't mooned as much, maybe IREN, which I also will say if it breaks through the 50-day MA here at 48.35 or so. Love that play. If it does make that break there, that's definitely on watch for me today. Names like Hut should be moving it in that direction. They're a big proponent and player in this, and you do see moving up about 3.5%. That one breaking to all-time highs. I don't like to chase that quite as much right here. I did mention already Core Scientific would be one to keep an eye on. They've made that transition. Another really good one, I forgot about TerraWolf. TerraWolf, again, another one from both a fundamental side and technical that can break the 50-day SMA at 1350 that I love for a play today. Some of the other small cap names in the sector, BTBT, BITF could get some runs also. It hasn't moved crypto one way or the other, and if we can stay pretty stagnant in here, that would make that theory stick in mind as long as we hold above that 89,370. You can see right here my view on Bitcoin right now is pretty straightforward. I am still shorting in that 94 to 96 area. I'm going long in that 86K area. There is a little micro shelf that's developing here at that 89. So I did close my short out that I was in yesterday at that level overnight. So The others are holding up. Ethereum actually, same thing, bounced off a key fib level, looks pretty good. And Solana's got a lot of leverage built in. If it doesn't break through this 144 soon, watch for a downward slide there. Other movers I'm watching, Intel today is up about 2.09% after the president said good things about their CEO. They're definitely keeping an eye on that. Another sector that is having some strength today is the airline sector. You can see here Southwest up about 3.87% so far this morning. So watch for American Airlines, AAL up about 1.46, and DAL, Delta, to have good days if love continues to drive to the upside. We do also still see defense spending moving. Kratos up another 1.88% here. Nice move to the upside here. GM was getting hit a little bit the other side. Yesterday, I talked about Ford, which had a good day. Yesterday, seen a slight pullback today, up about 4.8%. Ford announced yesterday they are going to have an autonomous driving, well, a hands-off driving car, a $30,000 EV that had them skyrocket up yesterday, as you can see in the pre-market 9 o'clock, 9:30 hour. In response to that, on the other side, GM, who has not been as forward thinking as Ford, getting hit down about 2.18% today. Part of that was they are pulling back on EV like Ford already has done, and China restructuring. So there is a little bit of risk there. Biotechs are across the board here today. J&J is striking, or already did strike, a deal with the White House. Johnson & Johnson isn't really moving the needle on the price, but in return for giving some low-cost medicine to U.S. consumers, they're going to have they're going to get some tariff relief. So watch for that one on that fundamental news. You could see a little bit of a play there. What else was I looking at so far? Those were my key stories so far. Yep, let's start to look just through everything. So, like I said, gold has been pretty stable, sitting around that 44.90 area, not really taken off. This has been key resistance the last 4 days. If it does break across that 4,500, I think you see a run back up to its all-time high around 4,550. But so far, like I said, that 4,500 has been a pretty tough wall for it to get through. Silver continuing to show strength here, 78.54, with a 2% move to the upside here today. And that one continues to move. If you haven't seen, make sure you go to Quasar Markets Live, our YouTube channel, or our Twitter feed. Take a look. BigBeat interviewed Peter Thomas, chairman of AU Secure and our metal expert here at Quasar. I don't want to spoil it. I'm going to make you go there, but he's got some explosive news you've got to be paying attention to on the silver side there. So make sure, again, you take a look at that. Oil is up slightly here, up about Brent up about 83 basis points, and WTI up 1.29%. And you can see gas finally broke through its 50-day MA here, WTI. And it does look like oil from a technical side wants to move up, but that trade, man, way too headline rich for me. If we look overseas for indication, it should be a strong day today as the Nikkei up about 2.26% overnight. China up about 0.32% through the Hang Seng, and the stocks up about 70 basis points overnight. And again, they broke to an all-time high again overnight. So sort of like our S&P, they're very similar look and setup. If we take a look at the sectors of the S&P, a lot of green in the pre-market here. So we do see right now utilities leading the way, up about 1.5 percentage points. Let's see, next it looks like is energy, followed by industrials. And no real laggard, nothing too close to, well, I lied. Consumer staples, pretty neutral along with consumer discretionary. So those sectors are pretty flat on the day. I mentioned DXY back above 99 here, so we'll have Mr. Flanagan in to talk about it. But to me, it seems like King Dollar is back in play for sure. Want to ask him if it matters if it breaks above this technical level here, and if that's something he would be looking at. So we'll have him in, like I said, in about 20 minutes. I am going to take a quick 30-second commercial to have a drink here before we go to the next session.
Are you an online educator struggling to find your audience? Quasar Markets connects you with learners looking for you. Keep 100% ownership of your courses. No hidden fees. Already have monetized content? Get paid again and again. Apply today. Take control of your educational empire. Quasar Markets, where educators build their legacy.
Okay, what are some of the early trades that I'm looking at here today? Maybe I am loving Elf Beauty. Made a nice move yesterday up through its 50-day MA. Pulled a little bit down here. If it can break through its highs of 87.63, I think you've got room to 96 and then up towards 101. So if you're looking for an interesting play today, Elf is one that I am definitely keeping an eye on personally. I've got a few of the penny stocks I'm keeping an eye on here in the pre-market. LRHC, La Rosa Holdings, looking pretty good, up about 48% in the pre-market so far. CETX also on watch. Semtrex up about 32% here. So we do. And then the penny punt one to really keep an eye on is, we talked about Open Door Technologies trading at about 712 here. And again, if it can hold 50-day MA here, watch for a nice move up towards 825. So there is definitely a lot of single stocks to take a look at today. On the crypto side, it's a mixed bag. I do like how the crypto-related exchanges, so to speak, are holding up, with crypto not moving up. Robinhood, Coinbase, SoFi, and PayPal, Galaxy Digital, all showing strength today. So I'm watching that sector pretty closely here. MSTR is a laggard here right now in the pre-market. It's usually the contrarian play. What it usually does in the morning, it does the opposite towards its trading day. So keep an eye there. And I've already mentioned most of the major names involved in the mining sector that I'm watching based upon a sympathy play from the nukes if they continue to go to the upside. Chip sector, keep an eye on ASML. Looks like it wants to run today. It's close to its all-time high. See what it does towards that 1250. Again, one that I would actually maybe be looking to fade there. Plays I am looking to the upside today. AMAT, Applied Materials, another one on watch here today, along with Lam Research, LRCX. Some of the high flyers that look like they might want to give a breakout here. Also keeping an eye on TJX today. Again, explosive day yesterday, and looks like if we can get a repeat of yesterday's high, 158.55, look for a run. Retail had a strong day yesterday. We'll see if we can get the breakout today. So far, and again, breadth of the market is huge today. We see advanced decline up about 2,500 here, with 7 minutes to go to the open. VIX is trading about 1532, so it has ticked back up after getting to a low of about 1506 in the last hour. I mentioned the dollar back above 99. Love to see that. Gold, the key number to watch today is that 4,500 number it's coming up on. If it does hit that and hold, watch for a quick run there, probably to an all-time high. Currently 45.50 is that number. Silver looks pretty strong again today. So, this seems to be an everything going up a crypto day so far. We'll see if that continues to be the case as we get to open. Steve's Tesla position at risk here of giving back a little bit. It was up about 1% yesterday, still below the entry he had there. So we'll find out on Monday whether he was able to trade his way out of that one yet. Looking at the Mag 7, Google still showing the most strength on the AI buzz, up about 55 basis points. And then we see Tesla slightly green along with NVIDIA. I mentioned the nuclear names. A lot of them getting steam today because of the deal with Meta to use an SMR in partnership with Vistra here in my state of Ohio to energize the Prometheus data center they're building out here. Huge, huge, huge data center. I do want to, again, make sure that we keep our eye today is the next catalyst will be the Supreme Court tariff ruling potential. This is the type of headline that can cause a 20-minute sector rotation. And the key is tariffs aren't just trade policy, they're fiscal policy because the revenue line matters. If tariff outcome does go against the president, input costs will start to fall. It's good for margins, but fiscal whole risk can push yields up. If the tariffs are upheld, the administration keeps the flexibility. Markets may price in more stickiness in the pricing and inflation narratives. So the things I'll be watching here for that is import and consumer sensitive names. Like I said, Target, Nike, TJX, all those were high flying yesterday. They're on watch today. Names like industrial capex names like Caterpillar and John Deere are ones I'll be watching. And tech supply chain sensitivity, Apple's a big one there. Keep an eye on Qualcomm. It's already been looking it was looking weak. I don't know if it still is here. Yeah, it was looking weak going into this. Keep an eye there. We are about 5 minutes from the open here. And again, after seeing that initial pop on the data, we do seem to be pulling back down here. Take a look and see. Plug was way down this morning, now bouncing back a little bit. So that's a good move to see from there. I mentioned GM down on their EV news. They had hit an all-time high yesterday, now pulled back about 2.11% on a shift in their electrical vehicle strategy, reducing their EV capacity and focusing on full-size SUV and pickups due to the market changes. Qualcomm, as I mentioned, is down about 2.25% here in the pre-market, showing some weakness there. Some of the mining names, Light, LITE, Ferris, FER, down this morning also. Seeing PDD, parent company of TikTok, down this morning. General Mills under a little bit of pressure. Nice bounce back by SharpLink here this morning. In Newmont, they were also laggards. Same thing. Sezzle was a big laggard earlier this morning. Made a nice pop up here as we get ready to get into the cash open. On the positive side, we do see FRMI getting a little bit of a run here. Fermi Inc., a real estate investment trust. So I mentioned AGNC earlier in the show. Also keep an eye here. FRMI getting a little bit of a push here too. Caesar Entertainment having a good day too, up about 2.91%. Finally regained its 200-day MA here. That's another one on watch for me today. As long as it can hold above that 25.57 level here on the open, trading about 25.80 right now. Allen Energy come up on some key resistance. We are about 1 minute from the open. I'm going to do the quick commercial and get ready for the open.
You're running full speed, but the markets are faster. Quasar Markets Live brings the world's top financial minds to you. Everything you need to know in one place. Learn from elite educators and gain a competitive edge, leveling the playing field for you. Join the conversation. Quasar Markets Live.
Okay, we are set to open here. I'm going to start off watching the NASDAQ here through the Qs, see what it does on the open. I want to see how technology gets its reaction, and we are open here. See how the algos are taking the news and the employment data. First little hit on the Q here is to the downside. We started off in the green. Looks like we are headed to the red. It's holding up right around that 620.63. So 10 at EMA holding up so far. See what we get across the others here. S&P trying to come right back towards neutral, also using the VWAP as a little bit of support right here. Let's see if that can hold. First move on the VIX I want to see is to the upside, although not a huge move one way or the other. Dollar did pop off here in the cash open, just retook the 50-day MA there up to 99.10. Gold's first move mutedly to the downside. Same thing with silver and copper. There is big news on the copper side too. Tinto, big merger there. I forget Tinto. Rio Tinto, right? Yeah, Rio Tinto. Looking to merge with Global X. And so far not down about 3.5% on that merger news. You see the small caps here up about 61 basis points. So some folks, what's the 10-year doing here? So after initially coming down, we do see now a move to the high here a little bit on the 10-year. So rates are moving up. That's going to be a little bit restrictive for the market. We see the breadth of the market at 3,500 or so. So we jumped up another 1,000 to the upside on the cash open there. So that's good to see. VST 15% to the upside, a little bit of a pullback here. Watching ONDS after its strong move there, hitting a little bit of resistance here today, down to the downside slightly. See Apple and Google both green. The rest of the Mag 7's gone red. Tesla back down at more than 1 percentage point. Netflix down 1.6%. So again, that rates were the first mover. They're moving to the upside still. So that's not a good sign. The higher rates go, the more restrictive it will be for trading. So keep your eye here. Do you see the SPY trying to move back to the upside here? Dow Jones towards lows of the day here. NASDAQ trying to get a little bit of a bottom in here. Chip sector, mixed bag. ARM, Qualcomm, NVIDIA red, the rest green. ASML, like I said, it was right towards its all-time high. It's pulling back. That would have been my short today. Now see Meta at least flat, so they are at least holding steady after that news. No real move by Elf yet. Sell off across Vistra a little bit. Does look like Open Door Technology, same thing, down slightly from those highs. We now see ONDS just pop to the upside, so there you go. See Constellation Energy pulling back a little bit, Talent Energy. So it's a mixed bag. Some of the energy companies still showing strength, smaller ones, but CEG pulling back a little bit. Kratos looks pretty strong today still. Love looks nice, looks strong, still moving to the upside, 4.4%. So we're seeing the airlines get a little bit of love. On the other side of that, Fly just got a big sell-off here from 28 and change to 26.50. So big sell-off on Fly right there. Lunar also, LUNR, down about 9.1% here today. Plug still moving to the downside. GM has gone back up slightly there. Adobe, another one that's under pressure here today, down about 2%. Gold threatening to go across that 4,500 spot here. Bitcoin holding that 90,000, 92.50, but not looking too strong. Ethereum holding up at 30.75. Oil still moving to the upside, up 1.34% at WTI today. Boeing at 230 here. Nice little move to the upside, trying to challenge its 52-week high, maybe. Alibaba got hit pretty hard here in the open, down about 2.5%. Chinese names, Baidu up about 1.6%, but it looks to be a mixed bag because, like I said, Alibaba is actually down. Costs down slightly here, 914.50 after showing strength, big strength yesterday, a little bit of weakness there. Just trying to see what's going on across stuff here. Okay. LRHC, I mentioned in the open, moving to the upside here. This is one to keep an eye on, trying to make a run, maybe up to $2. Nasdaq still sliding a little bit here. Okay, everybody, I do see Mr. Flanagan has come to join me, give me a little bit of a reprieve here. We'll bring him right in. How are we doing? Flanagan. Here we go. No. No. He's going to come right back in. We'll give him a few seconds here. Looking at the NASDAQ here, it is starting to go sideways here. So maybe the algos are changing here and we're seeing some buying step in. We do see the S&P nicely bouncing back to the upside here. So far, small caps, the big winner, up about 1% here. So that's what's moving to the upside. Silver is getting a run here. Silver trying to run now back at 79 here. Just broke the 79 handle while gold sits pretty flat. Bitcoin holding just above. And let's see if it worked. There we go, Mr. Flanagan. Yeah, sorry. Let's see what we get here with Mr. Flanagan. Sorry about that, everybody. Technical difficulties on a rainy Friday here in Ohio. Again, silver catching a little bit of a bid here. VIX is sitting about 1539, so not much of a move one way or the other. DXY holding up just above 99. S&P is getting the one catching a bid here so far. Sound AI getting a nice little run. Let's give this another try here. Mr. Flanagan, how are you?
Good, Howard. Can you hear me?
Yes, we are good to go. How are you doing today?
Technology's not working.
Yeah. Got to go old school. Just get a can and a piece of string.
Right. I'm doing well today. You know, I did want to point out dollar index here, 99.05, and still moving north. Looking good. We put a high in of 99.16 and then retraced back down. But since the opening here, we're beginning to meander on 99.31 is a key level. It was December 9th's high. I do believe we'll be breaking that. But of course, ahead of us, what do we have is this Supreme Court. Are they going to rule today? And so people are getting in the dollar, but they really don't want to because this could be upset very quickly. Leading us is the euro dollar, dropping down to 116.38-35 zone. We're now well below 117.20, last week's close. And then we ended last year at 117.38. So the dollar, by all measures here on technicals, is looking very good, but the market just cannot buy into it until the Supreme Court rules on this huge event, tariffs. So that's really what's in front of us here. Across the board, my highlight is dollar MEX. 1790 was last week's close, and we're at roughly 1799, roughly 97 right now.
Yep.
This is a big one because if you watched the Trump interview last night, and I am long dollar MEX, and I added to the position, he said 99 or 98% of all the drugs coming into our country via the sea has stopped. And now it's time to focus on the land. And then he said cartels. Now, land and cartels means our southern border,
yep,
and that's Mexico. I am hoping that any action is in coordination with the Mexican government, because this could be quite destabilizing. But in any event, MEX is a 7% currency, high interest rate, the parking lot for the past year or two of where all the funds in the world that don't want to come to the U.S., and we know that the dollar has been under pressure. It had one of its worst years in 20 years last year. Right. So the markets are very long of MEX versus a short dollar. So this could be an explosive situation to watch. A break of 1802.03 is going to send us up, and I target 1820 to 1822. Except the way dollar MEX moves, it can move in a hurry. Sometimes the third most traded currency in the currency markets on a day, where $9.4 trillion trades in one day. So keep your eye on the MEX. It's a great indicator. What does it mean for our equities and everything? What it means is that a lot of money gets freed up from the sidelines and has to go somewhere, and the U.S. markets are looking primed for a surge of capital, and that would be money moves first. Yep. That's why I point that out to watch. So that's my.
I noticed the dollar yen really moving to the upside.
Yeah, so this dollar yen, this is, I had been long. I've been out of it. We got Bank of Japan coming up in a week, 2 weeks. They are probably going to pause. And that's why the markets are starting to get ahead of themselves here. But once you get above 158 and the line in the sand is 160, this typically in the past has brought in a very heavy hand of intervention. Now, what does intervention mean? It means several $billion gets sold buying yen by the Japanese central authorities. So to describe it simply, it is a very large market, as I said, 9.4 trillion in one day. But when you jam down $5 to $10 billion in a very short interval, it's a watermelon going down a garden hose and does have a knee-jerk reaction. All things remaining equal, I want to buy that dip, and that's what I am waiting for. But right now, the markets are getting ahead of themselves, trading very close to the 158 level. This is a significant breach, but this is you got to be watching your screens if you're adding to a dollar yen long position at this level.
You're at historical records there. What else are we watching, Mr. Flanagan?
Well, there's a big thing that I've only seen a couple of commentators talk about. And I wanted to, I have my theory, my thesis is quantum convergence, and it plays out over time, over 2026 into 2027. This is going to be a big issue. But another ingredient into this mix of this tremendous bull market that we're going to enter into over this next period of time, and I define that as 1 to 2 years, non-farm productivity in the quarter of 3 expanded to 4.9% from 3.3. What does a productivity gain means? What it means is that GDP over 4% in the US goes even higher. And traditional, and here we go, when everybody traditionally looks at the models from the past, you can't have growth over 2% without igniting inflation. Well, that gets thrown out the window now because productivity gains means your economy can grow 4, maybe 5%, as long as it's not igniting the wage growth, which traditional economic models have always festered in. So that's why when you look at Europe and you hear the ECB saying we're at 2% on interest rates, and we're expecting growth to grow, but yet they're not forecasting over 1.5% for the next 2 years. What sort of growth is that? What sort of livelihood does that allow the populace to live in? It allows them to say, we don't have inflation, but there's no growth. So throw the models out once you begin to see the productivity gains. Is there a risk? Sure. Everybody immediately jumps to the negative. Oh, it means people are losing jobs and blah, blah. Not necessarily. What it means is you can have a more prosperous economy with wages now growing and living standards increasing without inflation fears. So, not a very talked about number. Watch it to the viewers. Keep that one. In fact, go out there and use your AI model and plug in. What does a higher productivity mean to the economy, mean to me? Something to watch.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure with that. Rates continuing to tick up here. 10 years back above 4.2. Market seems to be reacting to that. We do see our advanced decline that had been up over 3,500 has retraced back to 2,200 here. Small cap still leading the way up about 70 basis points. NASDAQ only up 14 is the laggard so far. S&P is up 22 basis points, and the Dow Jones up almost 30 basis points here today. Did push up on that 7,000 level, but rejected again.
Yeah, interest rate's going to jump a little bit because the Fed probably, based on the unemployment number of 50,000, weak. However, unemployment rate dropped to 4.4. But, I'm already all over. This is a seasonality that they plugged. People say it's not a plug. It's the statistical seasonality that the BLS uses in. Okay, I get it. The data was flawed. We didn't get data, so this number has to catch up. But all right, throw it all out the window and then look at a better number, the U6, which is the catch-all number, 8.4%, down from 8.7. Okay, I get it. But 8.4% is the real unemployment number in the United States. If you think that that's acceptable and the Fed can say, well, the number wasn't so, baloney, out the window. The Fed's going to pass on lowering rates again because that was the quid pro quo out of the last meeting. However, the markets are setting themselves up. We're going to get another cut in the following meeting. It's only, full speed ahead here. Let's just get through the Supreme Court decision. My take on it, just so I'm out there, 5-4, that they say tariffs are fine. And it'll be Judge Roberts that throws the number, the fifth vote, which clears the way for tariffs. But he then writes the dissertation, which says, hey, Congress, redefine the law that you passed that he's using. And if you want to rein in the executive power, then redefine the law you passed. Right. And that would be the perfect way for the Supreme Court to stay out of the thick of it, not, cause a volatile moment within and look political, but yet throw it back to Congress. And if we want to rein in the executive branch, that's what should be done.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm definitely not a Supreme Court type knowledgeable person, so I don't know, which way it's going to fall. I looked at the prediction markets; they still have them as the other way, so we'll see if you've got the edge or they do. Again, it's just more. It's more about telling our traders everything today is going to be about headline news. That's right. It already has been, so keep your eye on it. We also have the oil and gas company folks headed to DC to meet with the president today. That can be great news. It can be not so great news. It should be great news. I would be playing it that way, but we've seen, how those things can go in the White House. They can go either way pretty quickly here. I was trying to think, like you said, I did see the talking heads all talk about that same thing, GDP on track for 5%. That's a pretty damn good number. And there isn't another country out there in the developed world that's approaching that, right?
Not even close, especially when you look, if we just use arbitrary numbers of 350 million people in the United States, and you look over in Europe and see 450 million, and then you say Europe is growing at an anemic rate of under 1%. Germany's last print was actually minus 0.5%. So, and if Germany's the leader, the growth in Europe is all coming from the peripheral, the Baltic states, some of the newer countries within Europe, but it's not coming from Germany, France, or Italy, the three top economic powerhouses. So, now that they've taken in Bulgaria, so I think that's number 21 now under that block, the contrast between a growing economy in the U.S. and Europe couldn't be more, stark right now. Right. And Europe, of course, has a tremendous amount of potential, especially when you look at them growing their defense budgets up to 5%. That will create quite a bit of stimulus in the industrial manufacturing sector. But Europe has far too much bureaucratic mess. And they're going to have to learn how to deal with that. They are rapidly falling behind in this whole AI technology space. There's really one big company out of Europe, a couple, but certainly not the same number of companies that you would see in China or the US that are pushing in the AI space.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. That is, that's part of the narrative of everything coming back into the US, right? Into the stock market, into the dollar. There. I don't really have much more else for you this morning there, Mr. Flanagan. I think we've hit on all the key data. What do you got for us headed into the weekend? Anything you're watching?
Clearly the Supreme Court ahead of me. So that's one. There was one other issue. I did talk about the productivity gains. That was big. The second is, notice how nobody's talking about U.S. trade deficit, the lowest since 2009, 15 years. And you actually had an export sector surging by 2.6% plus, while imports are dropping. The narrative that is beneath the scenes that unfortunately you have to dig on is that the tariffs are actually having quite a positive effect and are not increasing inflation like your scholars at the Federal Reserve Bank have been saying it would. Yes, it has had some sort of effect, no doubt about it. But the data is beginning to show that exporters and importers have absorbed a lot of this cost.
What I've seen and I can only go from the beer, wine, restaurant sort of side of it, where I have some input into, insight into the supply chain. A lot of it's been retracted. In other words, they're not bringing in the French wines. They're not bringing in this stuff. So it's not quite there. And then the other side that I'm seeing here in Ohio, some manufacturers that are getting hurt by these tariffs are now putting up white flags, so to speak. So I do have a little bit of a different angle there. It's got to play out. I don't know it all yet. First of all, the Supreme Court's going to make a decision that, that makes that go one way or the other. But there are some things that go into it. The availability, I like being able to buy French champagne, and I like having, different things from around the world, and I still want to have access to them. Carving out the measures for cocoa and coffee, and some of those things have helped in certain areas, and I agree with that. I don't agree with the beef one. So there's a plus and minus to all of these as they play out across the system. And I think, again, it's going to be very sensitive going into the mid-year elections, obviously, as we know, that's going to play all of these headlines against each other. So,
yep. But then again, a lower trade deficit is another
Definitely positive news, any way you look at it, right? Absolutely.
that
And,
was
we
really
can get some of this manufacturing moving onshore. That's a positive. Yeah, like I said, there's definitely positives there. We have to see. I think it takes more than 6 months to play out. It's a bigger cycle because industries don't just ramp up overnight. Supply chains don't move overnight. So I need to see how those sort of play out, right?
Yep, I'm one of those that tries to keep the glasses half full. I like to reach out and grab the positives and pull them in and analyze it because, as I've always said, in this marketplace, you can go into a dark room and throw a dart. You will hit a negative topic. Sometimes it's very difficult to get out there and say, hey, wow, that is a positive. Wow, that's another positive there. And begin to connect the positive dots. And suddenly you're sitting there with the markets at all-time highs, yet the negatives are all over the place.
Well, see, that's what I'd say. I think I'd go, as a guy who looks at both sides of it, equally almost. I would say that what I would say there is it's just as easy to go in for a retail trader to throw a dart and find positive. The nuclear energy part, like the news and headlines around actual corporations has been nothing but positive in general.
That's
so
right.
that can change. While the geopolitical side has been at an all-time low, maybe I would also say euphoria about single case or single stocks has been at almost an all-time high. Just look at these numbers that are being offsetting it.
That's right, Howard. And that was my point on our Wednesday show that we talked. I kept saying that I study price, and price is telling me that things are positive, and prices keep advancing. And that means somebody is looking at the positives and ignoring the noise pollution.
And that's what I think. That's the only thing I'm saying is I think our narrative of throwing the dart and everything can only get better. On the geopolitical side, I think we've moved across that because that has happened. We've seen the hand across the aisle in some of these, not our aisle as in Democrats, Republicans, but I mean, now Venezuela, hopefully we're not going back in, and now hopefully things have cooled down a little bit in Ukraine, and we're moving in the right direction. So I do think we're getting back to at least neutral that way. And it can only still move up, in my opinion. I think we're both there. For Mr. Flanagan, myself, BigBeat, I hope he's enjoying the charted market technician. I saw pictures of him and Kathy Wood together, all gallivanting around Tampa. So they're having some fun, and Jay Wood and the guys from the CMT. So he's got some great stuff going on. He'll have a lot of stuff for us on Monday. Everyone have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you on Monday morning.